In the early 1960s, my parents moved away from the Pine Ridge Village, and they moved to Denver. And they already had one son who was born here in Pine Ridge. And then as they went to Denver, they went south, and my mom told me that they boarded a train in Alliance, Nebraska, and they went on to Denver. And after 3 children, they came back in 1964. In 1964, they were living with my great-grandmother, Susie, out in Wounded Knee. The Matthews land is west of the graveyard. And in May of 1965, my parents decided to go back on relocation, and so they moved to Los Angeles. And of August of 1965, I was born. Now, this was a program created by the United States government for assimilation, and when I was born out there, I never realized how much impact that would play in my life. And a couple years later, the next year my brother was born, a younger brother, and the earliest memories that I have were probably when I was 3 or 4, more likely 4, and we were living with our dad, and my mom had left my dad because he was so abusive. He used to drink a lot, and I think my mom got tired of it. She told us that she started drinking when she was 28. She started partying, and that was probably when I was, I would say about 4 years old, or 5 maybe. I believe I remember kindergarten, so it must have been 3 or 4 when I first remembered my earliest memories. And one time my father said, "Come here, I'm going to teach you how to fight." And I walked up to him and he hit me in the forehead. So I ran outside crying, and he did that to another brother. And so we all took off. We went to our aunt's and we went to her apartment. When we got there, we went into the house, and the next thing I knew, the police were called. The police loaded us into the squad car, took us to a house that had a cage on the side of it, and I thought it was really weird. And so we went there, we stayed there, and she put us in the cage the next day, and I remember we were brought back up into the bedroom, and I was looking outside, and I could see a schoolyard across the road, the street. And all I could think of was freedom. And so somehow we got out of the house, and we ran into that field, and all of a sudden there was a sticker patch, and we didn't have any shoes. And my older brother did, but me and my younger brother didn't. So we had to stop while there was this blonde-haired young boy, or he's older than us. He came over and he saw what was going on, and he picked me up and he carried me to the sidewalk on the other side. And my older brother picked up my younger brother, and we ended up getting on the sidewalk and then going home. And the next memory I have was when my mom came, and she took us and we lived with her from then on. And growing up in Denver, I was fighting, starting to smoke marijuana, drinking. I was probably 10, 11, 12 when this started happening, and lots of fighting going on. And then all of a sudden, my mother comes home in 1979 from South Dakota, and she says, "We're moving to South Dakota." And I was shocked and disappointed. I didn't want to leave Denver. And so we came to Pine Ridge in 1979, and 2 years later my mother moved back to Denver because it was too difficult living on the reservation. But I decided to stay and finish high school, and I had a lot of friends, and by the time I was 19 years old, I realized that Pine Ridge was my home. I understood assimilation. I didn't want to go back to Denver and live that life out. So that's kind of the early part of my my life, and that was in 1981 when my mother decided to move back. It was between my sophomore and junior years of high school, and so, you know, assimilation is something that I understood, and something that I wanted to fight against. And so now I live on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and my children are in college, and I hope that other people can fight against assimilation. I mean, I understood and understand what assimilation truly is, and I know that our people here on the Pine Ridge it's a culture that has been affected by the European American culture. So, you know, my question is, you know, it's like, do you understand what assimilation is? Because each and every one of us have had our lives and culture changed by the European contact. And I suppose that if the Europeans didn't come, that we would still be different here in the Americas. But it would be a strange place. You know, I mean, I don't know, good or bad. You know, the Industrial Revolution came, and, you know, the cars, you know, Henry Ford, I mean, through transportation, you know, Bill Gates and the computers, and, you know, Apple, and, you know, telephones, you know, Bell was the guy that created the telephone. So there's a lot of things, communication, transportation, language, you know, everything has been affected by the European, you know, push to come to the Americas. And so I guess I kind of see pros and cons, but I realize that being an Oglala Lakota tribal member, you know, that we have a lot of work to do to offset the intrusion of the European American people. And I don't have the answers. You know, I try to live my life out and understand what's happened, but it's a very difficult question of how do you de-assimilate, I guess, you know, especially with Western education and, you know, philosophy and, you know, the arts and things like this. I mean, how do we change our lives today on the Pine Ridge? And it's a question. It's an open question, open-ended. And I think that we have a lot of work to do. Thank you. Have a great day.